All right. Good evening. Back on our weekly read-along sessions. This week I will be starting with January 14th article from Liberation News. Again, if you are new and joining us, uh, I will be reading articles in regards to socialist movements. Usually, these articles are provided by PSL or Liberation News at liberationnews.org. Feel free to comment, ask questions. This is just a personal series I'm creating to have audio of these articles and to help me keep up with these articles, as well as help other people. If people have questions or want to have conversations and we can grow this group, that's great. If not, I will continue and keep trying to get informed with these issues. Eventually, if there's other articles that people may want to suggest to read along, talk about, have conversations, have guests, then we will do that. For now, I'm just sticking to Liberation News and the articles they release every week. So I have about 4 3-minute articles today. The first one I will be starting with is the January 14th, 2024 article, which was released late last Sunday. The article is called National March for Gaza Brings Enormous Crowd to DC to Reject U.S.-Israel Genocide, written by Joyce Shadiak. Hope I pronounced that right. If I butchered names, sorry. Not great with foreign names, but I'll try my best. All right, and here we go. First article reading is some 400,000 people gathered in Washington, D.C. on January 13th to demand an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza, a stop to the U.S. funding of Israeli genocide there, an end to the siege of Gaza. Tens of thousands of converged in a sister demonstration the following day in San Francisco. This was the second giant pro-Palestine demonstration in the capital since October 7th. They joined millions around the world in a global day of action for Palestine, as Israeli genocide against Palestinians trapped in that tiny enclave neared 100 days. A massive march was also held in London, Washington's partner in the recent bombings that targeted Yemen, for its solidarity with Gaza. Rallies, strikes, and mass mobilizations were held in major cities of South Africa, Japan, Turkey, South Korea, Indonesia, Ireland, New Zealand, Ivory Coast, Sweden, Italy, Germany, Austria, Australia, Finland, as well as other cities across the United States. The huge protest took place days after South Africa brought Israel to the International Court for Justice on charges of genocide against the Palestine people. The demonstration in Washington, D.C. was organized by the American Muslim Task Force for Palestine, a coalition of major Muslim civil rights organizations, with the Answer Coalition acting as a national partner. Addressing the crowd were Palestinians whose family members had been killed in Gaza. Leaders of the organizations involved in the task force: Brian Becker of the Answer Coalition, actress Susan Sarandon, Alana Hadid, and by video message, Wael Dahdouh, the heroic Gaza bureau chief for Al Jazeera. From the podium and in the crowd, much of the anger was directed at Joe Biden for Washington's funding of Israeli genocide, for opposing a ceasefire in the UN, and for giving Israel political cover for its crimes. The overwhelming sentiment of the crowd was that under no circumstances could it be more morally justifiable to vote for a murderer like Biden. Attendees were also outraged at members of Congress who refused to back a permanent ceasefire, allowing a genocide to continue. Speaker after speaker explained that the issue in Gaza was not some inherent religious conflict, but a matter of fighting oppression and injustice. If genocide is allowed to be inflicted on the people of Gaza, no group is safe. Many quoted Martin Luther King Jr. as an enemy of all oppression, and Nelson Mandela, a staunch supporter of Palestinian rights. Palestinians tell what was done to their Gaza families. Especially moving was testimony given by 6 Palestinian Americans with families in Gaza. They described the killing of parents, brothers, sisters, cousins by Israeli bombs as they sheltered in their homes, as they helped dig out others trapped in rubble, as they followed Israeli orders evacuate to the south. Some were picked off by Israeli snipers while searching for water for their families. Others returned from a search for food only to find their homes collapsed and their loved ones buried in rubble. It was with much passion that they demanded that the United States force an immediate and permanent ceasefire and stop aid to Israel. Ala Hussein Ali, a physician from Michigan, said after describing how he lost 100 family members, "I paid for the murder of my brothers with my tax dollars." At the conclusion of the rally, these family members led the giant march from Freedom Plaza to the White House. Another highlight was a video message shown on a big screen from Wael Dahdouh, the Al Jazeera bureau chief in Gaza, who has become a much-loved symbol of Palestinian resilience as he continued to report on Israeli atrocities even after Israel murdered his wife and children. Dahdouh thanked the crowd and emphasized the importance of international solidarity to the people of Gaza. Speakers emphasized the power of the people. Dr. Osama Abu-Shahad, Executive Director, American Muslim for Palestinians, and AJP, Action, called out U.S. politicians who support the genocide against Gaza and members of the Biden administration who described as meritless the 84-page documentation of genocide presented to the International Court of Justice by South Africa. This fight will continue, he said, calling on the many thousands present to join one of the organizations participating in the march, to organize and fight for freedom and justice for all. Palestine will be free. We are not going home. Gaza will be victorious. We will dismantle the genocide state. Muslim, Christians, and Jews will live in peace, and freedom and justice will prevail. Brian Becker, national coordinator of the Answer Coalition, informed the crowd that as they protest in Washington, activists had shut down the port in Oakland, California, to stopping all port operations for the day, including a ship that was destined to go to Israel. He said, in quotes, "Joe Biden has decided not only to fund Israeli genocide in Gaza, but now to carry out a wider war by dropping bombs on people in Yemen because they are strong to stop a genocide and shut it down. Our message, not just for the politicians, but for our own movement, is that the power to make change is not going to come from the Democratic Party establishment or the Republican Party establishment. It's going to come from us." The example he cited was the mass struggle in South Africa, which overthrew apartheid. For waging this struggle, the people in South Africa 40 years ago were defined as terrorists, and they were in jail. But today they accuse the genocidal maniac in Tel Aviv before the world. On November 4th, we were here in the hundreds of thousands today. We were here in massive numbers. We're shutting it down. And after the powerful rally, the march wound its way through the streets of downtown Washington, D.C., taking fights to the headquarters of the U.S. political elite. The demonstration took over the area, jamming the streets in a display of people power that was impossible to ignore. The march ended outside the White House at the doorstep of the war criminal Joe Biden. For hours after the demonstration ended, thousands remained just outside of the White House gates, expressing their profound outrage at the mass murder that was plotted from that very location. There is no doubt that the political crisis for the Biden administration will only continue to deepen as long as it engages in genocide against the people of Gaza. All right, just rolling it up here. Here's a picture of the march. All right, that was January 14th. We're going to get closer now. And there's one here. Why are the U.S. and U.K. bombing Yemen? All right, so this article will probably be a little bit heavier. We'll get going straight to that one. All right, why are the U.S. and U.K. bombing Yemen? Written by Jane Cutter, January 15th, 2024. It's about a 5-minute read, so this one's going to be a little heavy. All right, and the photo here is anti-war activist rally in front of the White House on January the 11th, immediately after the US-UK airstrikes on Yemen, credits Students for Socialism. All right, if you pay attention to the mainstream news, the US government and its now junior partner, the UK, asserted they have bombed Yemen because the illegitimate and terrorist Yemeni government is interfering with international shipping and commerce and must be punished by the international community. If you ask the Yemenis, they will tell you they are acting on their moral and religious duty to stop the US-backed Israeli genocide of Palestinians by preventing Israeli ships or those bringing goods to Israel from passing through the Bab al-Mandeb. Ansar Allah military spokesman Brigadier General Yahya Saree said, "Our forces continue to prevent Israeli ships from navigating the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden until the Israeli aggression against our steadfast brothers in the Gaza Strip stops." Who should we believe? The United States, a nuclear-armed military power biggest in the world, which provides billions of dollars in arms and logistical support to Saudi Arabia during its brutal war on Yemen? The United States, which provides the greatest amount of aid to Israel, most recently giving the Zionist state $2.8 billion to continue to carry out genocide? Or the UK, the colonial occupier of South Yemen from 1839 until 1967, when it was kicked out by the Marxist liberation movement? The UK, the country that in 1917, in the Balfour Declaration, promised Palestine to the Zionist movement as if Palestine was theirs to give? Or should we believe Ansar Allah, also known as the Houthis, who holds power in much of Yemen and are the ones stopping Israeli-linked ships in solidarity with Palestine? As a military force, Ansar Allah, fighting with homemade drones and vastly fewer weapons, not only held their own against US-armed Saudi Arabia in a brutal war that dragged on for years and killed 150,000 Yemenis, they could not be defeated. That is why a ceasefire was declared in 2021, that talks have been ongoing regarding a permanent peace agreement. The US and UK governments have been clear in their stated intent regarding the anti-Yemen bombing campaign. President Biden said, "I will not hesitate to direct further measures to protect our people and the free flow of international commerce as necessary," while UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak emphasized that the attacks were intended to protect global shipping. They are concerned that Yemen's actions in the Red Sea are making international commerce more expensive, since shipping companies are now opting to sail all the way around the southern end of Africa, adding about $1 million in fuel costs for each voyage. In addition, insurance costs have shot up nearly tenfold for ships operating in the Red Sea. It's not surprising that capitalist countries would be upset about anything that interferes with commerce and trade. But wait, isn't there something else they could do other than bomb Yemen to solve this problem? The Yemenis have made it clear they will continue targeting ships in the Red Sea as long as the US-Israeli genocide against Palestine continues. The governments of the United States and UK could use their power and influence to stop the genocide, but that is unthinkable to them. They would rather create more destruction and instability in Yemen than stop supporting genocide in Palestine. And this is clear for the whole world to see. UK and US imperialism. The US and UK have a long history of attempting to dominate the Middle East region from Palestine and Yemen and beyond. In 1839, the UK colonized the port of Aden in the south of Yemen, a huge deep-water port that can service very large vessels. Of course, this was only one part of the vast British Empire that was the most dominant world power of its time. Natives and their land, their natural resources were to be exploited to benefit Mother England, while the most vile and disrespectful treatment was meted out to the peoples who were colonized. Of course, the whole enterprise was framed as a mission to civilize the colonized, the white man's burden. The UK was kicked out of South Yemen in 1967, leading to the founding of the People's Democratic Republic of Yemen, which was the only Marxist-led Arab state until it merged with the Republic of Yemen, North Yemen, in 1990. The United States is a relative newcomer to dominating the Middle East, or at least trying to. From its overthrow of a democratically elected government in Iran and installation of the Shah in 1951 to its massive funding and military support of Israel to its invasion and occupation of Iraq, the U.S. ruling class sees the region as strategically important to its interest due to the natural resources, especially oil, as well as its location between Europe and Asia. In 1986, the U.S. Senator Biden said, were there not an Israel, the United States of America would have to invent an Israel to protect her interest in the region. He repeated this comment as president in July 2023, when Israeli President Isaac Herzog visited the United States and spoke before Congress. I need to repeat that. Paragraph because this is very important what he said here. In 1986, the U.S. Senator Biden said, were there not an Israel, the United States of America would have to invent an Israel to protect her interest in the region. All right, moving on to the next paragraph. United States has bullied Yemen for decades. In 1991, Yemen held a temporary seat on the United Nations Security Council and cast a sole no vote against Desert Storm, the genocidal war on Iraq in which the U.S. military committed countless war crimes against the Iraqi people. Following that vote, the U.S. ambassador of the UN reportedly told the Yemeni representative, that will be the most expensive no vote you ever cast. And then the United States proceeded to withdraw all aid to Yemen, down to its Peace Corps volunteers. Over the course of the past 4 presidential administrations, the United States has terrorized Yemen, from George W. Bush ordering approximately 50 drone attacks on the country during his administration, to Obama drone striking wedding celebrations and ordering the CIA assassinations of U.S. citizen Anwar al-Awlaki, alleged to have been involved in terrorism, not to mention the killing of his teenage son 2 weeks later, to the killing of al-Awlaki's 8-year-old daughter, Nora, during the Trump administration, and now this bombing attack under Biden. The United States also financially and logistically supported the devastating Saudi war against Yemen starting in 2015, which led to what the UN called the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Let me repeat that. The world's worst humanitarian crisis. Both Trump and Biden have provided Saudi Arabia billions of dollars in arms sales for its war on Yemen. The U.S. Navy has helped the Saudi-led coalition maintain a blockade on Yemen, which resulted in famine, cholera outbreaks, and the total destruction of Yemen's health and medical infrastructure. The United States also trained Saudi soldiers and its Air Force, providing aircraft maintenance, logistics, and intelligence. U.S. commanders were even involved in joint planning to choose Yemeni targets for the Saudis. The U.S. government will go down in history with blood on its hands for the 150,000 Yemenis who were killed in this brutal war. Only the Yemeni people can truly determine who is the legitimate government of their nation. However, the solidarity actions in the Red Sea have not only unified Yemenis behind Ansar Allah, they have drawn the support of the masses of Arab and Muslim people worldwide, as well as many others living in the imperialist states who want peace with justice for Palestine. This is a true David versus Goliath story. Yemen itself just emerging from a brutal imperialist war, facing off against the mightiest militaries on earth, in solidarity with the people of Palestine, United States, and UK. Stop bombing Yemen. Free Palestine now. Cool. So that article is published on January 15th. Take a quick sip of water and go on next to the next article. Just a reminder, I'm reading these articles from liberationnews.org, as you can see on the website there, or on the titles. You can also feel free to find the links to these in the description, as well as links to how to support Liberation News. One thing I have to credit Liberation News for is their factual coverage of these situations. You can pretty much do some of your own personal research and see how true these subjects are and the way they're presenting them. And these issues are always presented from the view of the working class, humanitarian, and leftist views, which obviously I'm part of. But I do try to set aside my bias when I'm reading these and trying to dig through them to see how legitimate they are. And nothing that so far they've posted or printed is unfactual. So feel free to dig deeper once you read these articles and find out the truth for yourselves. All right, next article here. Taiwan's 2024 presidential election. U.S. propaganda of independence must be rejected. All right, so this is by the Liberation Staff, January 16th, 2024. 5-minute read. The photo here is Lai Ching-te attends a Taiwanese banquet in San Francisco in 2023. Credit Shufu Liu, Office of the President, CC by 2.0 deed. Again, if I butcher these names, I'm sorry. But like I said, feel free to do your own research. I never tell people to just believe what I say or what I read, but they present their case here, and everyone should always try to remove their bias when they read these articles, and do the research. Go down a rabbit hole if you really care. Freedom will knowledge will always set you free, is what I think. The truth will always set you free. All right, so let's move on and read this article here. Again, this is published January 16th, 2024. Taiwan's 2024 presidential election. U.S. propaganda of independence must be rejected. First paragraph. This past Saturday, January 13th, Taiwan held its 2024 general elections, which included its presidential election. Current Vice President Lai Ching-te of the Democratic Progressive Party, DPP, won the election, which continues the DPP's hold of the presidency of Taiwan for a third term. What is more notable, however, is that Lai and the DPP did not win a majority of the vote in this victory. He and the DPP only won a plurality with 40.05% of the votes in a contested three-way race. Hao Yu-in won 33.49% of the vote as the candidate of the Kuomintang KMT and principal rival of the DPP. Impressively, Ko Wen-yi won 26.46% as the candidate and the founder of the Taiwan People's Party, TPP, a party formed only in 2019 and contending in the presidential election for the first time. This result is the first time in 2 decades, the 2000 election, that the winning candidate failed to secure a majority. A presidential race between 3 parties, each securing at least a quarter of the vote, would be unheard of in the United States. Importantly, this result indicates diversity of political opinions and stance among the Taiwan electorate, which stands in stark contrast to the narrative that is propagated by the U.S. ruling class. This one-dimensional narrative paints a caricature of the people of Taiwan as monolithic in their political beliefs and universally desperate for the United States to save them from the tyranny of China and liberate them in a fight for independence. Western media was quick to frame the election of Lai as a defiant rebuff of China by Taiwan, which flattens the nuance and shifting political landscape of its populace. Diversity of political opinions within Taiwan. The DPP and its party platforms represent one extreme pole of this landscape regarding Taiwan's relationship with China, espousing the establishment of Taiwan as a sovereign and independent state, Although the KMT does not represent the other pole of unification with China, which is supported by parties such as the Socialist Labor Party, it nonetheless represents a contrast to the DPP by generally supporting closer relations and collaborating with China. The DPP seeks to position itself somewhere in the center of the two major rivals, criticizing the DPP for being too antagonistic to China and dependent on foreign support from the United States and Japan, while claiming that the KMT's approach is too appeasing to China. The rebuff reflected in this election that it that is actually worth mentioning is the rejection of the DPP and its extreme separatist platform. The combined votes of the KMT and TPP amount to roughly 60% to the DPP's 40%. In fact, the KMT and TPP had even planned to run together on a joint ticket until their agreement fell apart in November 2023. It remains to be seen whether they will try again or pursue a united front in the future. But for now, it is clear that there is a strong desire among the people of Taiwan for an alternative to the stance of the DPP. The diversity of opinion and changing internal debate about its relations with China is further reflected in the other noteworthy result of the 2024 general elections, that while the DPP won the presidency, it lost its majority in Taiwan's legislature by losing 11 seats. The KMT will have 52 seats to the DPP's 51 in this legislative yuan, which will set the stage for division, conflict, and compromise. 2 of the remaining 10 seats went to independent politicians who lean closer to the KMT and here in the arena of the legislature. The TPP yet again made waves by winning the other 8 seats. This places the TPP in a powerful and unique position to sway lawmaking by supporting or blocking legislation as a tiebreaker. Although the new TPP does not represent a leftist program in Taiwan, it is important to highlight that a contributor to its quick rise comes from its support from young voters under 40 years old. Not only are these voters attracted to the TPP's pragmatism and lack of ideological dogmatism that the decades of old KMT and DPP duopolistic rivalry embodies, but they also identify with the TPP's focus on addressing domestic issues such as economic inequality, affordable housing, and political corruption. Therefore, the increasing popularity of the TPP among the youth signals a new trend of young people in Taiwan who are tired of the political squabbling over the relations with China and instead want to focus on solving the material challenges impacting their daily lives. Long-running survey data gathered by the Election Studies Center at National Shangxi University also illustrates the varied and changing views of Taiwan's people on the question of establishing independence from China. Although the sentiment for moving towards independence did reach an all-time high in 2020 during the election of the current DPP president, Tsai Ing-wen, it has since proceeded to plummet by 17% to the latest level in 2023. At the same time as that decreased, the sentiment for maintaining the current status quo of relations with China indefinitely without seeking independence skyrocketed by over 25% to become the highest ranked opinion in 2023. In second place was the position of maintaining the current status quo and deciding on unification later in the future, which has otherwise been the overwhelmingly most popular opinion in Taiwan since 1994. The extreme view of establishing independence as soon as possible has never surpassed 7.8% in this multi-decade survey, and the latest data in 2023 places it at a low 4.5%. Although the stance of unification with China as soon as possible has historically always been the least popular opinion, the position of maintaining the status quo with a move towards unification has had more support over the years, spiking to 12.8% as recently as 2018. This data displays recent shifts in public opinion, but it also communicates a clear message that pushing for independence has never been the most popular belief of Taiwan's people, and that the top two opinions for decades have predominantly been for maintaining the status quo in the near term and being potentially open to unification in the future. Narrative of Taiwan independence only serves U.S. ruling class. The false and warmongering propaganda of Taiwan's people yearning for independence only benefits the U.S. ruling class and its military-industrial complex. U.S. government officials such as President Biden and Secretary of State Antony Blinken only pay lip service to the One China policy because the United States would otherwise not even be able to have diplomatic relations with China. Meanwhile, the United States maneuvers to prop up Taiwan to serve its own interests as a pawn and destabilizing force against its economic and political rival China. Ever since 1979, the United States has sold over $14 billion worth of military equipment to Taiwan under the Taiwan Relations Act. Just last year, however, Biden made an unprecedented move of aggression by approving $80 million to come from U.S. taxpayers to directly fund Taiwan's military purchasing under the Foreign Military Finance Program. The United States has used the FMF to fund its war interests in Israel, Ukraine, Afghanistan, and Iraq, but it had never used it to support any entity that is not even recognized as a sovereign nation by the United Nations. This break will likely only be the beginning of the United States using the FMF to funnel taxpayer money into Taiwan, and it shows the U.S.'s true attitude on Taiwan despite its claims to the contrary. It is imperative for the working class in the United States to reject the narratives of Taiwan's move towards independence because it is contrary to the reality of its people's buried political views and because it only provides justification for fueling U.S. imperialism and its strive for war. All right. Let's look at the next article here. All right, so the next article here, Lenin and the Path to Revolution with Brian Becker. All right, liberationnews.org. Follow them in the description box. And this article is less than a minute. It's Lenin and the Path to Revolution, Brian Becker. This is written by the Liberation staff, posted January 17th, 2024. Cool little picture of Lenin there. All right. This Sunday, January 21st, marks the centennial anniversary of Lenin's death. That is today. Lenin and his successful leadership of the Bolsheviks not only proved the capacity of the proletariat to seize power, but successfully established the first socialist state in 1917, demonstrating Marxism as a powerful and revolutionary force for the working class. Even 100 years later, his theories and strategies continue to illuminate the path forward for people and movements committed to building working class power, showing the necessary steps for achieving worldwide socialist revolution. This three-part series with Brian Becker studies the life and legacy of Lenin, the formation of Leninism, and the revolutionary paths it generated across the world. All right, so here's a posting with a link for YouTube for Class 1. Three-week hybrid course with Brian Becker, Tuesday, 11/28. All right, so we recommend, or I recommend, that you follow the link in the box to go to these articles, follow this article, and here are some free seminars by the People's Forum, Class 1, Class 2 here, Lenin and the Path to Revolution. There's a Class 3. Cool. And I guess that's pretty much it for that short article, just promoting these classes that are free online for anyone to sit and watch. I recommend watching them. All righty, let's go to the next one. All right, Lenin Never Gets Old, January 19th. Okay, Liberation News and the Party for Socialism and Liberation. This article here called Lenin Never Gets Old, Young Revolutionaries Discuss. Liberation Staff, January 19th, 2024. It's a short, less than a minute article as well. All right. January 21st marks the 100th year anniversary of the death of Vladimir Lenin, who led the first revolution in world history where workers and oppressed people seized power and built a socialist society. His actions and ideas have inspired revolution in every part of the globe, from Cuba to Ethiopia to Afghanistan, Vietnam, and so many other places where people were determined to fight for a new world. Three young organizers with the Party of Socialism and Liberation discuss his legacy and how Leninism gives us the tools we need to win today. All right, so this article is just a quick promotion for a free PSL YouTube live stream video here. Lenin Never Gets Old, Young Revolutionaries Discuss. So feel free to follow this link and check out this video. Cool. So let me go back to the articles that we read here just for a quick summary. I believe we started with National March for Gaza brings enormous crowd to D.C. to reject U.S.-Israeli genocide. I'll just give my short opinion on what I've read here. For that January 14th article, yeah, I totally support that. They mentioned in there that there was not destructive, but disruptive movements as well, like disruptive rallies, stopping traffic, blocking traffic flow. Honestly, if I was in traffic and I saw people stopping traffic, yeah, I would be a little uncomfortable too. But honestly, I wouldn't be too bothered with it once I realized what the real cause is. This is an important cause. This is for genocide. This is for a humanitarian cause, and yeah, people should feel uncomfortable. I think it's a good thing that you're stopping the production lines in whatever way possible to get everyone's attention, to create conversation, to raise awareness. If you put yourself in their shoes, you would want disruption too, so that you don't get bombed, so that your kids, your wife, your neighbors don't get bombed. You wouldn't like something like this happening in your neighborhood. You would want the world to know the injustice that is happening to you if it were happening to you. So I am in full support of whatever needs to be done, as long as we're not causing spreading violence. I think disruption rallies are the best way, as well as the rallies they had at the DC Capitol this weekend. I think that was great. I'm glad that these happened, and I hope they continue happening until Israel stops this genocide against Palestinians in Gaza, because it needs to stop, and we shouldn't be funding such things. It's horrible. It's horrible when you think about what these politicians are blatantly doing, knowing that they're doing it, and then just gaslighting people on national TV saying that people like the Houthis are the terrorists, which is absurd. It's absurd because it's under international laws. The Houthis have a responsibility. Yemen kind of has a responsibility. I'm no lawyer, but as I understand it, they have a responsibility and a right to practice blockades and disrupt the flow of products that are going to Israel to bomb and kill innocent people and to commit genocide. So I support the Houthis, Yemen. and the activists here, as well as the anti-Zionist Jews, which I know there's a lot of kind people. I have nothing against Jewish or I'm not anti-Semitic, but I am anti-Zionist. I'll say that clearly. If you think Judaism deserves its own state, well, there's 3,000 other religions around the world, and where are we going to put all of them, right? Just maybe oversimplification, but that's just my opinion based on the facts provided to me. All right, the next article here, which was why are the U.S. and U.K. bombing Yemen? I guess I kind of jumped into already. I already started talking about that, and like I said, I do support. I think the Yemen are doing the correct thing. I think the Houthis are doing the right thing. I think that from what I hear, any kind of disruption by the Houthis via those seaports actually is a victory, because whether they can stop or not a full ship, it already gives other ships the incentive to not go through there. So that's already a win. They just have to deter people from taking the chance or risking all their products and losing all their products due to sinking ships. So it forces everybody to go around South Africa, which is fine. I don't, like I said, I'm not saying it because I want people to be to sink ships. I don't want violence, but under international law, Yemen has a right to do this, to slow down or prevent the transport of goods that support genocide. So that's that. Taiwan's 2024 presidential election, U.S. propagandas of independence must be rejected. Reading this article, the first thing I was wondering about was in regards to Taiwanese elections, do they have ranked choice voting? Would it have been a different election? Would it actually been a more democratic vote if they do? But as the article explained, there is no solid support in Taiwan for an independent state there. So we should let the people of Taiwan decide. Let them decide with their votes, and the incentives. It's supposed to be a free market world, right? So yeah, let China and Taiwan do their business and do it out and see what happens. Why are we, as the empire of the world, the United States, why are we always trying to influence things? It's supposed to be a free market, but we spread around sanctioning and doing embargoes, and supporting coups. So I think we should let Taiwan decide. Like I said, feel free to reread the article. The propaganda machine in the U.S. Don't forget, we are one of the richest. We are the richest nation in history. And what are we doing with that money? We're just trying to just control the message, gaslight the world into thinking that we're always right, And we spent all that time and energy and resources and just selling more arms to become an even wealthier nation, but we are morally bankrupt. I'd rather see a nation that invests all of its resources on lifting its people instead of perpetuating more war and pain and horror, not only abroad but within its own people. This nation does really well in propagandizing division amongst us, the working class. And once you start reading and looking into it and fall into this rabbit hole, you do realize that this nation is more morally bankrupt than you would want to believe, especially our leaders, which are obviously elites that are duopoly oligarch. They all know what they're doing. I think people don't give them as much credit as they deserve, and call these elitists morons or inadequate to lead. The only reason I would think they're inadequate to lead is because they're morally bankrupt. But I think they know what they're doing. when there's a misstep, when there's errors, when there's lacks of funding and stuff like that. They know exactly what they're doing. It's all planned out just so they can, gaslight people into thinking that there's problems that they can't solve here, like that we don't have money, even though they print billions of dollars for military aid whenever they want to, just to feed the industrial military complex. So those are my highlight thoughts on these articles for this week. Like I said, feel free to follow the links here, and so you can check out the free web seminars or presentations about Lenin's revolutionary discussions, especially the one with Brian Beck here. That's it for this week. I'll be back next weekend doing the same thing, just reading these articles, taking notes, going through my own personal growth process through here. If people ever have questions, feel free to send them via the comments, either live or in the later video comments. Thank you, people, for tuning in. Hope everybody has an excellent weekend, and goodbye.